Lord. I'm resident of Colorwood for YouTube. I'm Joel Sains. There's no sanity ever on this podcast. That's Gordon Dymowski. That's Alan Gallant. That's Patrick McCray. We're here to review the Avengers Season 2, Episode 1. Okay, so when did you guys first get into the Avengers? Gordon, you first.
Well, I got into it when I was a kid because there used to be on CBS late night Friday 10:30 reruns of the Diana Rigg stuff, and my first episode was officially an episode called Murdersville. So I got involved in that, and they would also intermix it with the New Avengers, which is the '70s Canadian version. So I kind of got into it for a while. Then got back into it in the late '80s, early '90s when it was being shown on A&E. And they went through all the episodes. They then went through the initial, like early stuff that was never shown in the United States.
Yeah.
I did see the movie, didn't care for it. So, but that's, I know there's already a podcast out there. I'm not going to rehash those points, but yeah, the Avengers is one of my like kind of top 5 comfort shows. I can just put it on and just kind of chill out for a bit.
Cool. Alan, when did you get into it?
Probably when the syndication package first hit the United States. And it was happening around the same time as, I think, The Prisoner, around that same time. And so I got both of those in a heavy dose initially. And it is the Rigg, the Diana Rigg, Linda Thorson era. It's what I was into. I recognized Linda Thorson years later because she was on American soap operas for a while. Very cool. Very cool. Loved them both. And of course, by the time those episodes had happened, the character of Steed had reached his full fruition. With the jokes and the sexual tension and all the other things that were going on in sort of that gentlemanly way. And he'd graduated from the Homburg or whatever he was wearing to the bowler. All of that sort of thing happened. And I didn't get any of these earlier episodes until much later. And I don't think I'd seen this particular episode at all before I watched it earlier today. But it's fascinating to watch Honor Black developing the character or the character traits that would become, her fame in the James Bond movie. So in sort of a slightly different way, but a lot of the same energy.
Yeah. Patrick, when did you first get into the Avengers?
Patrick McNee wrote a book late in his life, and it was a romp, and he really talked about being a nudist. And his son, in a British tabloid, was somewhat embarrassed by this and responded that there really wasn't a lot to see. But what an actor! That's my tribute.
Yes.
No, he's a hell of a guy. Known really more for short subjects, but seriously, I first saw it. This is a true story. Something like just stuck in my mind from tabloids from like 30 years ago. Same as Gordon, CBS late night movie on Friday nights, which was kind of a phantasmagoric kind of thing because it also had, it would intersperse itself with Kolchak.
Yes.
So I don't
Yes,
think it
I
was
remember that.
week to week. I think it was, there'd be like a block of maybe a month and a half of Kolchaks, which would be all of Kolchak pretty much. And then there'd be a block of Avengers or New Avengers or something like that. And it was like, what the hell is this? Because when I first heard about it, I thought, oh, okay, good. So they must have Nicholas Hammond and Bill Bixby together, and they'll throw in Exo Man, even though it's not Iron Man, and I know it's done as a joke on YouTube now, but I thought it was gonna be the Avengers.
Like
Trying to get my hair was weird. And I tuned in, and it was this other thing. And that's happened to me many times in my life where I've been disappointed into loving something. Because I think Dark Shadows was sort of like that for me when I was 11. You know, I was told, oh, it's
Yeah.
Kit Jackson and a vampire.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
see you next year. Yeah.
But I immediately, you know, as I'll tell you, as much as I enjoyed Diana Rigg, and I did, Patrick McNee just steals that thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's really the reason that I can watch the Avengers without Diana Rigg, but I can't imagine watching the Avengers without Patrick McNee.
Right.
And he is just such a unique, interesting, charming person. He is as funny as a serious person can be.
Yes.
And I love that about him. And he just seems to be someone, because I don't know if there's a big difference between John Steed and Patrick McNee. You know, they seem to be very, very, very similar in their personalities. Figures, and of course, is written for McNee. And you know, it was at a time when there was a lot of weird British stuff that was showing up on obscure cable channels, a Spotlight and things like that, which in Louisville is what we somehow gave up HBO for. What kind of deal was that? Yeah, for years we didn't have HBO. We had Spotlight.
Yeah.
Which to me is just a metaphor. And it was the Pepsi. It was the Pepsi of cable. Anyway, but it had a lot of like weird English TV movies, like this weird version of Thief of Baghdad that would show up with Roddy McDowell and
a little BritBox going on kind of stuff.
Yeah, but not BritBox anyone really wanted to see.
Except
stuff that occasionally would waft on, like Hammer House of Horror. You got a full dose of Simon McCorkindale every day, whether you liked it or not. Oliver Tobias and Simon McCorkindale were in ready supply. But anyway, you know, I was getting the Dinky catalogs. And so there were, you know, Dinky toys of, I think, some new Avengers vehicles. And that's as much as I got to know this stuff as anything. You know, you had stuff like UFO TV movies that had been sewn together from several episodes, and those, you know, so it was all part of that world, which I dearly love. I mean,
it's cool, sort of like a whole milieu, right? That just kind of it soaks your imagination from all directions when you get into it like that.
It did, you know, and you would see just the first Thunderbirds movie, and that was it for Thunderbirds. But it was like the coolest thing ever, and you wondered, what is this? What is it attached to? You had no idea.
Yeah.
So, what, Gordon?
I was about to say, like all three of us, you, me, and Alan, grew up in, like, I call it like the first great wave of syndicated programming, because you know, we all caught the Monkees way after the time, Batman, the Avengers, the Prisoner. I mean, I think it was. You have to understand, Joel. You know, television. You had one dial that was clicky and the other that you had to tune in. So it was like, in modern terms, we talk about it as being content. There's a lot of content being put out. And I think the Avengers, at the time, the only reason it was brought over to America 2 years later was that CBS was like, they knew they wanted some series coming in, but they didn't but in some ways they wanted to fund some stuff to bring over because British stuff was very popular thanks to the Beatles. So they brought, like you can see with this episode, why they didn't go with this one. They went with the Rigg stuff. They got a better budget. They're on film.
Yeah, the characters and sort of the Steed relationship to these women became more developed by that time too. So yeah,
they're just more confident.
Yes.
Then they had more money and they were more confident. And of course, when you can do more, it's not a doomer. When you can do more, it of course gives you confidence because you're not having to apologize or, you know, make do for like 3 sets and
and British ABC and the production company was getting more money from ITV and all this stuff. So yeah, they were able to do different things.
Has anyone done a big book about Lou Grade?
It would contain a lot of stories about what a jackass he could be.
I'm sure he would.
Yeah.
But just his contribution to
enormous.
Yeah, when you think about it, and Joel, there'll be a piece of this that will blow your mind. He funded most of Jerry Anderson's Supermarionation series,
yes.
The Prisoner, The Avengers, The Saint, and Raise the Titanic.
Raise the Titanic.
Right.
And Joel, get ready. This is going to blow your mind. The Muppet Show.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that was around the time that he became Sir Lou Grade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. I got into I only ever watched 3 episodes of this series, and it aired on the Sci-Fi Channel about 3 a.m. And the reason I didn't see more episodes of this
midday.
Well, no. See, Sci-Fi, nobody cares what you show for commercials, apparently. And when I was 14, I was watching an episode of The Avengers, and my mom would come in and she'd like, "What are you watching?" I said, "I'm watching The Avengers. It's an old show." So this commercial comes on with this man in a KKK outfit.
Yeah.
And my mother comes into the room and she goes, "You turn that shit right now. Daddy's an idiot on TV." And I said, "What is he even wearing? What the hell is?"
I mean, did the FCC allow that? What?
It's sociological snuff porn. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What was it?
It was an advertisement to join the KKK.
I might be able to explain it because years ago when I was doing public health work in St. Louis, and I knew a guy who he was part of our coalition, and he bought and he was explaining about ads that you don't necessarily at that time you didn't necessarily like say I want to sponsor XYZ. You bought a package of ours and they would show it whenever. So I'm sure that at the time, because I think the FCC's like rule about having like public interest stuff had been it wasn't true anymore, but I'm sure some KKK guy was like, here's $500, just throw me on at 3 a.m, whatever.
Right, on the local package. Yeah, that's probably was part of a local package somehow.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, this episode here, I like all the cool well, I like all the cool like set designs and the wall stuff on the wall. Really stands out. The dolls, the guns. I love that stuff. The cool designs we get in here.
It's very British Cold War too.
Yeah.
It's not too fancy. Once in a while, you run across some fancy set or whatever, but most of it's pretty cut and dried stuff.
Yep,
and
you don't need to worry about fancy here.
No.
Yeah.
And we didn't. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, very endemic of what British television was like in the early 60s, because a lot of this reminded me of very early Doctor Who, which is basically shot as if in theater. It's a lot of the way that Dark Shadows was shot,
they shot scenes all the way through. You could see even in this episode a couple of like verbal flubs happen. They're very quick, but the older boss guy, I can't remember his name, Steed's boss or whatever, he made a couple of real quick flubs, but it's amazing. McNee is really facile with this kind of acting anyway. I mean, he can go like 3 scenes straight and produce the energy that you need to sort of fascinate people. It's pretty good. But you're right. It's like live on tape in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, it's really cool how the set designs I like here. The grocer where the woman takes apart his bike, removes the starter, was cool as hell. The talking teddy bear was funny. I like that sort of aspect because I wasn't expecting that here. I had not seen this episode that I remember. I'll remember when I see the episodes, but this one I don't remember watching.
Well, the reason is, Joel, these episodes were not released with the Sci-Fi package. Okay. They were released like mid-90s to A&E because that was their exclusive.
Cool. But I did like the set designs. What's something you guys liked or didn't like about this episode?
It's an early version of what was to come. And so it's a bit stilted in places. I love the potential character development that's starting to happen. I really like that. I also like the fact that I'm into the sort of pop culture history of this era, and we're in pre-swinging London here. It's like a year or two away that it's going to start, where things are going to start getting more sort of snappy. We're in Savile Row right now in terms of the fashion and all of that sort of thing. I like that, but it's in an embryonic stage in comparison to what it's going to be in a lot of ways.
Gordon?
I think it's kind of I have a very neutral kind of opinion of this, because I think it tries to be clever in its script. But I think it's also tough because once you know and series like this, they weren't serialized, so it's like each episode's its own thing.
Correct.
But you can kind of see why you can see where there is potential, but you can kind of see why the network, CBS didn't pick it up until after the second season, when there's an interest in England, there's a new actress coming on, so don't have to worry about the Bond girl. There's some nice bits of it, but it just feels it feels of its time. I don't think it feels as fresh as the later episodes do.
Again, I think that it's McNee that holds the whole thing together, which is the intention. Ultimately, anyway, he's going to be the star after the first season, where he was sort of a secondary character.
Right.
For those who don't know, originally there was a doctor character that was the number one character, because the actor who played him had been in another show that was popular, so they wanted to cash in on that, and that worked out the first season. Of course, there's only like 3 surviving episodes from the first season, I think, something like that. So you don't get much of a sense of it. But Steed he wasn't even in every episode in the first season. He skipped out at 2 or 3 of them. And this other guy was sort of supposed to be that sort of central character. They start out with this doctor's fiance being murdered, and he's trying to solve the mystery. And that's how the whole series starts. He's avenging the death of his fiance. So it's a completely different animal already, even though it hasn't fully developed yet in the second season.
Patrick, what did you like or not like about this episode?
There was a monologue that I thought was really pretty interesting, where Steed, of course, known for his brilliant disguises, had some sort of like glasses like this, and sort of hair came down over his forehead, and he adopted some kind of weird Southern accent. And he was talking about the history of Teddy Bear, who apparently was a kid with cancer or something. It was horrible, and kept talking on the CB to truckers and so on, and got them to come to his home, and they all treated him around, and would like drove him around until it essentially killed him. He got back home and died.
Yeah. And then all the truckers were also busted for child endangerment.
No, no, of course not. They're they're heroes of the highway. So I thought that was really, really cool. I was just looking for stuff about the episode, and that was on YouTube. And I don't know how it worked in eventually, but I thought it was fantastic.
Red Sovine, what a brilliant writer.
He wrote throughout the first season of this, and adapted a lot of the Jean Le Carré stuff I think Red Sovine handled at least the Smiley TV series. Tinker Tailor, was that it? It's whatever. Alec
Tinker
Guinness
Tailor Teddy Bear was the original title.
That's right. Alec Guinness did that, and it was fantastic. Alec Guinness and Red Sovine are very close.
Yep.
They're both dead. They're real close now.
Well, and the conspiracy lives on.
It does.
Joel, are you familiar with Teddy Bear?
Old country song.
That amazes me.
Yeah.
No.
So Red Sova, okay. So of course, anyone watching is just full of monkey feathers. But there is a. I thought the episode was kind of like, we see what the show started from, and it gives an even greater appreciation for how they were able to get to where they got to, considering one of the places they started. It talks about. I think you really get to see what the limitations were of BBC state-funded TV, which I believe this was at the time.
No,
Well, it was produced by an independent ABC, right?
So low grade did the whole. Okay,
It was ITV basically.
Yeah.
It was,
So what the alternative was? It makes me really wonder, what was the British TV like that we didn't think was worth preserving?
Imagine a cooking show in this period of time.
Wow.
There are actual stories of like people of like Doctor Who tapes being erased and reused for like football matches, and like stuff we didn't care about.
Yes. Well, that happened in the States too for a while, but
it's how having Dark Shadows is so extraordinary that Dan Curtis had that vision to preserve it the way he did. Yeah. Anyway, but back to Red Sovine, because that's worth talking about. Red Sovine then got advertised a lot in the late 70s on KTEL type records, but he was this country act, and he would write these sentimental maudlin monologues where there's the joke about what happens if you play a country song backwards. You get your wife back, your car back, your kids back, your job back, and life's terrific. It's kind of like that, but in the other direction. Sovine, his stuff was just relentlessly depressing, and his voice would always
wavering,
toward the end. This is the sort of thing that no one could take seriously, and the only reason I thought about it was because the episode is Mr. Teddy Bear.
Teddy Bear.
And his most famous song is Teddy Bear.
Yeah.
And they called the boy Teddy Bear. And you just have to go to YouTube or something and hear this to believe how shameless
it is. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's a manipulative song. It's highly manipulative.
It's a great piece of 20th century bad taste.
Yeah.
Which the Avengers would not be.
No.
The Avengers would be, I think, one of the definitions of exuberant Carnaby Street good taste.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And in fact, the fashions on the Avengers as the seasons went on and went then into the new Avengers were always unbelievably cutting edge. Yeah. The cat suits, of course, but also Steed's neo-Edwardian wardrobe.
Yeah, it became like it starts Savile Row, it ends up Pierre Cardin, and then it goes to Carnaby Street in a lot of ways. The more conservative kind of Carnaby Street that was popular by the mid to late 60s.
When they did the Avengers movie, the J. Peterman catalog, the sort of the first version of it, the Elaine years, did an entire catalog of Avengers-based outfits, and the Steed outfit, I still have that catalog somewhere here. The Steed outfit's terrific, but you could also get bespoke the Emma Peel leather cat suit, which I hope Kathy Bates got for herself.
I think Emma Peel would recommend that no one wear that cat suit. I think she it was quite uncomfortable for her, although she understood.
Captain Lou Albano had one.
Yes, Captain Lou had one. It was. I think he borrowed it from Haystacks Calhoun, actually, by the time he got to it. But leather, that kind of tight leather is not comfortable, folks.
No, but it gives you such confidence.
Oh, it does. I mean, it made her image, and I'm sure she appreciated that.
Yeah. Tight leather can be comfortable, especially if you use a lot of lotion.
You float around in there, yeah, swimming. Ooh.
Oh my gosh! Oh yes. Favorite scene for this episode? You got one?
There's this monologue that no, I'm just
teddy bear. It's not my favorite monologue, but it's the most memorable thing. And it's not really a monologue. It's a conversation between the villain and Honor Blackman, and it so sort of illustrates where the show hasn't gone yet in terms of the whole hokey pill stuff and this whole conversation about gentlemen's blah blah blah, and I'm no gentleman, and this and that and the other thing, and then finally he takes his own poison, and it's kind of anticlimactic in a way. I like the guy that's playing the villain. He's quite spicy in a lot of ways, and he has a little maybe a little bit of early Victor Buono in him, but it's not as well written as it's going to become. These denouements, these climactic scenes in the series. So, but it's interesting again from a developmental point of view.
Yeah. Gordon,
I think that I don't know if I'd call it a favorite scene, but I liked how they set up in the early part where Mr. Teddy Bear kills a guy with a tablet that has a little watch thing that delivers poison.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, I don't know if Honor Blackman's character, Mrs. Gale, knows this, but she says, "Oh, okay, you want to be out? Take one of those pills." And he hesitates just for a minute because I think he's not sure whether he's going to take a poison pill or a real pill. So I kind of like that there's that nice construction, but you can see where, I mean, this is just a straightforward kind of crime drama with a clever twist. The Avengers becomes a little bit more of it has the clever idea, but it knows how to couch it in very familiar terms and allows you to kind of see, and kind of allows you to enjoy it versus kind of like, okay, this happened. Well, this happened.
And here's a phone call to explain what happened next and that sort of thing, which is kind of what this episode is. So,
Patrick?
Mills Watson played kind of these ineffectual Southern sheriff assistant types. Like he was on Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo, I think, with the mustache. Mills Watson. The story I hear is that, and this had to do with some Nazi genetic experiments, is that Victor Buono was a marsupial parent and that he was carrying Mills Watson at this time. And that when he was King Tut, you could see Mills kind of appear in the pouch and look around and then go back.
Through the robes, the voluminous robes.
Yeah.
Which is why they had to have even more.
I got 24 minutes into this. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And it was interesting because I had guests with me, and these are average people. Nothing extraordinary, nothing terribly hostile or anything like that. Just average people, and they were an interesting litmus test. They were an interesting set of eyes to see this through. So I'm very empathic with an audience, and they were being polite.
Yeah.
But you could tell just how different our storytelling sensibilities had become.
Absolutely.
And would become over the course of the production
series.
of Avengers.
Yeah.
And this has been shown in 130 countries. It's the most seen English television series, at least up until maybe the New Who stuff. I would argue, but or maybe Sherlock or something. But short of that, this is a
widespread,
saturated and translated God knows how many languages, and it even was the subject of a stage play, a big splashy West End stage play. Books, feature film. Which I would like to see the uncut version, because I hear it's kind of pretty different, or things hung together better because more of the skeleton was there to make them hung, which brings us back to Patrick McNee.
Hung skeletons, yes.
Patrick McNee.
I loved how this episode started. Started off real fast. Started off with a death. It gets into the plot very fast, and I like the pacing of this episode. And yeah, Patrick McNee is really, really fun to watch. He's just pure entertainment. When he's talking, when he's not talking or on screen, he's just a fun watch.
At this point in the series, too, I mean, he has a little streak of misogyny in him, but he also has this developing trait of being extremely interested in the attractive women who are his partners in a way that is gentlemanly, but also a bit sexual, just a little bit.
It is a very masculinely, if that's a word. Is that a word? What should I be saying for masculinistically? Anyway, he manages to be effete in a very masculine
way
manner, and I love that about it. He's darned interested in these women. He's he does not code as gay.
No,
he does not code as gay, and yet he has none of the coded traps of traditional masculinity either.
Right.
And I think that's great. I think TV needs more people like that.
Yeah,
he's intellectual and cultured.
Yeah, it's funny because growing up, I think there were two main ideas of manhood that I had as a kid: Patrick McNee as Steed and John Pertwee as the Third Doctor, because both of them have a very nice. They're direct. They're forceful when they need to be, but they can do charm. They can be relatable, and they're good at just basic everyday banter. It's not like they have to be super macho and monosyllabic, or they have to be eloquent and be talking all over the place. They are like me, total smoke shows.
Problem solvers too.
What?
So it's a lot of weird interference on the mic somewhere.
Oh, I heard something come.
My wife was setting some stuff down.
Love it. For me, I think it was the big three I had were Ted Baxter, Raleigh Fingers, and Edie Amin.
And not necessarily in that order.
No.
Okay. Is there anything you guys want to add about this episode before we go?
I think Edie Amin would have been good in this episode as the villain.
Oh God, he would have been great. Welcome to dinner.
Yeah.
A feast on the.
So tomorrow night we're doing Happen Leonard, right?
Correct.
Yes. Now, Gordon, have you seen Happen Leonard?
No, I have not.
Do you know what it is?
I know what it is.
It's really good.
Okay, I will give it a try at some point.
It's very good, and it stars an Englishman. God damn it!
It does.
So you got that. What's his name?
James Purefoy.
Purefoy. Yeah. There's the Quaker Oats guy, and the one the lethal one, and
Michael K. Williams.
Mark Anthony.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, he was Mark Anthony in Rome. Yes, he was Mark Anthony in Rome. James Purefoy.
He was Solomon.
And Michael Kenneth Williams was, of course, Cleopatra.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, when do you guys want to do the next episode of the Avengers?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest a different episode because this, I'm going to go with one of the black and white Diana Rigg ones.
Yeah, we can move around with this because they are individual adventures. And also I think that it's probably more well advised since we know that the first or the second season is more developmental in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and series 4 is like the first official American series. Patrick, you're about to say.
Before you make your suggestion, I just want to float what would have been my suggestion out there just to see what you think. How's the Jack built?
That's the one I was going to suggest.
Is that from season 4?
Yeah, from season 4. I think I'm looking on Tubi right now because I thought it was the first one. No, it's not the first one of the season. Now, I'm not arguing with you, Patrick, but
no, that's fine.
I thought for some reason it was the very first episode of that. Yeah, here we go.
I just was curious to get your take on that choice.
Because it was between that, the Cybernauts, and a touch of Brimstone.
Cybernauts is, I'll tell you the thing about Cybernauts that's good is it's got Brian Blessed.
What?
Take a look. I think he's in Cybernauts.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Would not be surprised. You could not miss Brian Blessed at any phase of his career. He demands attention must be paid.
How is my casting foo? Tell me I got it.
I'm checking IMDb.
Good.
And I do not see him. I'm not saying he's not in the Avengers. I'm not. Are you thinking possibly the sequel, Return of the Cybernauts, with Peter?
That's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah. Take a look at that. Because I think he is in that.
Okay. Yes, folks, you're getting to watch hot research action here on Red.
That's right.
Listen, Rule 34, my friends.
Live nude librarians.
Okay, this is weird. He's not listed on Return of the Cybernauts either. Could it?
Well,
hold on. Let me check. Let me check.
This.
Last of the Cybernauts.
Well, there's another way to go about it. Just Brian Blessed Avengers episode.
Okay, yeah. Brian. The Superlative 7. That's the episode.
Okay.
So let's start with House That Jack Built.
Okay.
And then we'll just bump around between black and white and color.
Sure. Okay. Blessed apparently is also in the new is in the Avengers episode The Morning After, which I think is from the last season. That's the Superlative. Yeah, I think so. Maybe not. Maybe that's just a but definitely Superlative 7. So yeah, cool, awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, he's also in The Morning After. Yeah.
Well, there's got to be a Morning After.
There's got to be a morning.
If we can hold on through the day.
If we can hold on through the day, that's right. So when are we going to do this episode of the Avengers then? Are we going to do this on Monday or Tuesday or when?
Whenever I'm on vacation, whenever you want.
Yeah, we're doing Happen Leonard tomorrow night.
Right.
Right.
And then let's aim for Avengers on Monday or Tuesday.
Monday or Tuesday? Okay. See what happens. I'll say Monday, but we'll see what happens. Okay.
Okay. Cool. Monday for the Avengers. All right. Let's see. Sunday happened. Link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Day book about is going to be in the description box. Link to Alan Glenn's YouTube channel, Collins Point After Dark, is going to be in the description box. Link to Gordon Dymowski's website is going to be, or Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Sorry. So go check those out. You guys have a safe night.
This has been a Filmways production, darling.
Yeehaw!
Did you just say